On that particular jump, it was the second I hit the diving board, it was survival. My skis were cranked to 14, and that rock took my ski off just like this. And last thing I know, I'm about to jump into the north face of the Matterhorn. I have only one ski on, and right there, I'm like, the first thought that went through my head is, you're not dying today.
Welcome to the Spartan DEKA Series on Spartan Up with Jarod Cogswell, Director of Sport, and Yancy Culp, Director of Programming.
What's up, Spartans? Welcome to the DEKA Series on the Spartan Up Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jarod Cogswell, along with my brother, Yancy Culp. And we're going to be talking about overcoming fear. Yeah, and who better to talk about it but Super Frenchie, Matthias Giraud.
Listeners and viewers, pull your butt to the edge of your seat. This is going to be a roller coaster ride.
This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by two sponsors, Headspace and The Ready State. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Headspace. You deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/Spartan for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditations for every situation. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by our friends Juliet and Kelly Starrett at The Ready State. Get a free trial and then save 10% for life by using the code SPARTAN10 when you register at thereadystate.com.
We have a special guest, but before we get to our guest, I just want to check on my brother over there in snowed-in Austin, Texas. And apparently, I thought, man, we got to goggle up, got to put the beanies on, we got to get the jackets going. We got a mountain theme to this episode, but my man's got a Mohawk helmet on and a ski jacket. What's going on over there, Yancy?
Brother, this may look like we broke out the props for the podcast, but this is in great need here in Austin, Texas. The most snow and the coldest temperature since 1937. There's more skiing and snowboarding going on the hills. It's basically a bunch of blue slopes around here. Four-wheel drives at the bottom. They just take us back up to the top. It's for real, man. Austin is crazy right now. We're really not prepared. I just broke out my Colorado gear. I'm good, though.
Hey, I'll tell you what, and you got to remember this. There's no friends on a powder day. Remember that. You just get out there and rip it. Well, speaking of ripping it up and shredding the mountain, okay, we have a special guest today that has completed things not many human beings on this planet have ever done. We call him Super Frenchie, and his name is Matthias Giraud. I've been friends with Matthias for the last 10 years, proud friends with Matthias. And the one thing that he has done that no other human on the planet has ever done is conquer the Alps trilogy. Yes, that's right. He has ski base jumped the Matterhorn, the Eiger, and Mont Blanc. Not many people could say they did any one of those mountains. And so I want to welcome to the show Super Frenchie, Matthias Giraud.
Woo. Thanks for having me. That was quite an intro. I'm like intimidating just hearing you talking about myself.
Oh, you're intimidated. Hey, dude, we're here to talk about overcoming fear. Okay, so let's get after this. And I know Yancy, he's got a little question for you to get this thing started. Yancy, why don't you go ahead?
Listeners and viewers, pull your butt to the edge of your seat. This is going to be a roller coaster ride. I'm reading straight from the paper here, Matthias.
Okay.
I got extremely lucky on this jump. Right as I jumped and tapped the ledge, my ski came off. That was almost a disaster. So I decided to go into a big front flip to get out of it. And once I felt my ski was out of the way, I pulled my parachute and it worked out. And I got a good flight. I couldn't believe it. I had a few lines twist up and stuff, but I was able to get out of them. And the flight down to the valley was a close call. But hey, man, I'm alive and I'm not hurt. We did it. Not in the cleanest manner, but we did it. I don't know if I'd do it again, though. Listen, of course, we're talking about when you're at the base of Matterhorn. I want it when you're standing at the base of the mountain and you're looking up, what's going through your mind? You're saying, listen, team, I'm going to ski base jump off of that.
Man, it was, so I got to back it up just a little bit. I was on on a ski assignment in Iceland and Norway for a shoot for a ski magazine. And then I was trying to then I flew to the Alps trying to do something on the French side of Mont Blanc. And I get a call last minute from my team manager at the time. And he's like, hey man, we're in Lauterbrunn in Switzerland. We get a helicopter. Can you be here tomorrow? We're going to drop you on top of the Eiger so you can do a ski base jump. So I was like, whoa, I wasn't prepared. So I asked my dad, I was like, hey, Dad, can I borrow the car and go to Switzerland to ski base jump off the Eiger? And he was like, yeah, of course. So I drove over. Last thing I know, I'm getting dropped on the Eiger, intimidated, on this big face, jump off the north face, the historical north face. That was the last problem of the Alps that people were trying to climb. You know, a place where Shane McConkey, JT Holmes, Jean-René Guévalet, like a lot of my heroes had been before. Anyway, I open, fly down, land safely, and I'm like, well, what's next? It's like, well, I did the Eiger. I got to do the Matterhorn now. And so as I'm thinking about the Matterhorn, I'm trying to elaborate a plan to ski base jump that mountain. But the Matterhorn is a pile of rocks. It's not really a mountain that you want to ski, right? It's a mountain that you more want to climb, kind of. Anyway, talk with Simon Antematen and Sam Antematen, young guides in Zermatt, amazing skiers. I mean, they're just top-notch guys. I mean, they won the Piolet d'Or, which is the biggest award you can get in mountaineering, you know. And anyway, so we elaborate a plan, and then I drive to, I fly to the Alps, escape an avalanche, and then by base jumping of a 600-foot cliff, drive over to Chamonix, do a couple of ski base jump over there, do a double backflip on a 280-foot cliff. I'm on fire. And then the next day I look at the weather. I'm like, dude, the Matterhorn is good tomorrow. Let's go. So we drive over to Zermatt, jump on the train, arrive there, sleep in the shitty little hostel because it was the cheapest to stay. And from the hostel, I can see this plume of rocks in the distance from the window. And I can't sleep, man. I look at this thing towering and I'm like, I want to jump off this tomorrow. Like it was nerve-wracking. It had never been done. Only a few people have even, skied the Matterhorn. The Alps trilogy had been done several times climbing, right? People had climbed the Eiger, the Matterhorn. And technically, the Grand Joras is the shoulder kind of like of Mont Blanc, which is the classic trilogy. But for ski base jumping, I was like, well, we got to focus on the summits themselves, right? But then as I arrived there, I'm like, dude, nobody's ever ski base jumped off the Matterhorn. And I get to the, so I kind of cheated because I took a helicopter to get dropped on it. I didn't climb it first, but as I arrive at the helipad, I get geared up and all that. I can see the Matterhorn in the distance. I'm freaking out, and I'm scared, but I'm feeling it, things are kicking in. So you just focusing. And the pilot comes out of the heli base and he looks at me and they're used to seeing some of the gnarliest stuff ever in the Alps because that's what happens every day there. And he looks at me, he's like, so you have a very special day today, huh? And I'm like, yes, I do. And then he goes, oh, and just so you know, we cannot land on the Matterhorn. It is too steep, but we will lower you with a cable. And I was like, okay, let's just add that to the mix. So get lowered on the Matterhorn and I'm just hanging on this cable below this Llama helicopter from the 70s. Simon Antematen is waiting for me on the Matterhorn and I didn't have a harness. So I just jerry-rigged like a sling through my parachutes and just that's solid enough to clip onto and just getting lower. So I'm just hanging from this just little sling, and just hovering over the Matterhorn. I look at the whole face below and I'm like, oh my God, this is gnarly, and it's just so intimidating. And I was like, okay, pay attention because it's all too easy. Something is going to get you. This is the deadliest mountain in the Alps. There's been over 500 fatalities in the Alps on the Matterhorn since I think it was climbed. And I was like, okay. And then, skied down. There was this perfect diving board into the north face of the Matterhorn, perfect takeoff. And as I ski down, I aimed my angle a little about 4 inches, maybe to the right. And I snagged a rock with my ski, took off my ski. It was going to send me head over heels, but I had just enough time to give a little impulse to be able to try to control the front flipped away from the cliff, clear this, 6-10 foot rocky outcrop. And then I was like, I got to pull as soon as I can because this is a disaster. I'm just flipping with one ski on, kind of uncontrollably pitched. And I was like, okay, it was going to send me into a second flip. And I was like, if I keep going with the inertia, I'm going to get my ski tangled. I got to get around the lines. I'd never done a flat spin in my life, but under pressure, did a perfect flat spin around the lines, cleared the lines by like a foot, open, straight on heading, clear the line twist, flew down the valley. Is like, oh God, here we go. We just ski base jumped off the Matterhorn. This is not how I wanted to do it, but somehow it worked.
Man, that is awesome. You know, I had no idea Sammy was with you. I watched for the 100th time my second favorite movie. My favorite movie is called Super Frenchie. You might want to check it out sometime. My second favorite is La Liste with Jeremy and Sammy, and man, and I remember them being on the Matterhorn and just turning around. They didn't want the conditions in that movie.
Yeah, they climbed the flank that is straight. I skied the top of that flank and jumped off the triangle that is, you have the summit and you have a triangle of rock. I jumped off the triangle and they were climbing the flank there and they turned around. And it's intimidating face, man. You know, it's like maybe 50 degrees, you know, you're on top of it. You're just like, dude, this is full on. This is, it's the freaking Matterhorn, man.
Yeah, it's the Matterhorn. It is one of the classics. And if you are a climber, an outdoors person, the Alps is a special place. And you know, we're obviously going to be talking about overcoming fear, and that's a pretty scary mountain and a scary endeavor. You get paid for these endeavors. And obviously there's a risk of life there. But what a lot of people don't understand, it is part of your job. It's what supports your livelihood, but it also supports your passion. And I think what I want to dig into with you, Matthias, first, before we talk about all of these things that you've done in the outdoors and GoPro videos that have 10 million viewers and all these great things that you've done. I just want to share just a quick story with our listeners, like how I met Matthias. You know, a week after my climbing partner, Mark Cartier, died on Mount Hood, we, a bunch of us from all the Mount Hood climbers and snowboarders and skiers, we were all taking his ashes to spread on the summit there. And I got a chance to meet you. And we spent some time together. It was a special moment. There was a group of us, Timberline, the Timberline Resort. They end up sharing their snowcat with us. They got us halfway up the mountain, and then we climbed the rest of the way. And we didn't have any plans of it, but Mark's son Bryce decided he wanted to get up to the summit that day and spread his dad's ashes. And he had never climbed Mount Hood before. And I remember Matthias and Carlos and Asit and Richard Hallman, all those guys are brothers. You guys were waiting for us as Michael Lemming and I, Michael right here. And when we got there, it was just like this celebratory moment. It was just an epic moment. And to watch Bryce spread his dad's ashes in honor of him is something I'll never forget. But when you and I met, I had heard of your exploits in the mountains and so forth. But the thing that I want the audience to understand is your humanity and your humility. And because there's going to be a lot of things that we share on this episode that a lot of people won't understand. But I feel like the mountains have carved, I think the big H word is humility. Can you share a little bit more about humility?
Well, in the mountains, humility is earned. It's not something you have right away, right? You go back in time, you're this young buck trying to, become a great skier or climber or whatever you focus on in the mountains, right? And you have all this ego and this hunger and this thirst to prove yourself. And so you tackle on big projects and, you make it through. Sometimes you get hurt and you heal up and you keep going. And it's this long, tumultuous journey. Then you get to this level where you're becoming a master of your own craft, but you haven't achieved the wisdom yet. You become extremely good at what you're doing, and you're doing things that not anybody else really is doing. And you're starting to cut it closer and closer. The air margin gets smaller and smaller. And eventually, sooner or later, the mountains put you in your place, through getting hurt or losing friends or almost dying. And then you learn that nobody conquers the mountain. The mountain tolerates you. You travel through its territory, and it allows you safe passage or not. And the more daring you endeavor, the less assured the passage is going to be. And this is when you reach a certain level of acceptance of who you are, which also means accepting your mortality, which therefore reminds you that you're nothing. You're just an ant on a Goliath. And you're just trying to not piss it off and still connect and communicate with it. I'm not a religious person, but the mountain has an aura and a connection, a magnetism. It sucks you in. And the price that nobody ever tells you is when you climb a mountain or you ski a mountain or you jump off it, you pay a toll, even if you come back alive. And that toll is that the mountain holds a part of you forever that will never, ever come back with you. And you come home to the safety of your house and your family, and your heart is your mind. Part of it, at least, is always going to be up there. It will never come back down. And if you're not okay with this, don't do it. But if you're okay with it, this is the road to transcendence. And humility is a part of it.
That gave me chills. That was, I really enjoyed that. Talk to the listeners and the viewers, because we all know that 99.9% of people walking the planet are never going to do what you've done. But talk to the listeners and the viewers about the emotional collision in your head of fear and excitement. And I'm watching your videos. I've watched just about all of them now. When your skis are turned sideways and you're looking down, you can see like there's a 15 to 20 second ski to get down to that lip. That starting with the ski down and then the lip is coming. I think you called it the diving board earlier. I freaking love that. But just paint the picture of what's going on in your head from the moment you push off.
Well, on that particular jump, it was the second I hit the diving board, it was survival. My skis were cranked to 14, and that rock took my ski off just like this. And last thing I know, I'm about to jump into the north face of the Matterhorn. I have only one ski on, and right there, I'm like, the first thought that went through my head is, you're not dying today. This is not an option. And the second thought I had, obviously all this happened in, a split second, the second thought was, as soon as you have an opening, pull your parachute. You got to have something over your head. If you have nothing over your head, you're dead. If you have something, hopefully it'll open well and you will not die. But it's better to have something all shitty, maybe flapping behind you and slowing you down somehow. So that was the Matterhorn. The Matterhorn was just, as soon as I hit that lip, I was like, ooh, I got carried away and I'm being put back in my place and but I'm not dying today. I'm surviving this. The Eiger, for example, though, was a completely different experience. I get dropped on the Eiger and I'm clipped in my skis. It's so steep and I'm waiting for 15 minutes, 20 minutes for the helicopter to come because it's a small llama. There's not enough room for the camera crew and me in there. So they had to drop me, fly all the way back into the valley, pick up the camera crew, fly back up, wave at me, and then when they were ready, then I just go and drop in. So for 15, 20 minutes, I'm just standing on this 50-degree slope, clipped in my skis, just waiting. Everything is silent. And you're alone, man, on the freaking Eiger. And this is the first time that I felt really lonely. But I loved it. I loved every moment of it. It was a full moment of acceptance against that excitement and fear. That equilibrium was really kicking in that moment. And but yeah, go for it, Jarod.
Matthias, when I think about all the the last split second decision to make a flip off the Matterhorn so that it buys you enough time to do what you need to do to survive that. Those moments waiting for 15 minutes before you're about to do something death defying, right? But you and I have had a lot of conversations, and the one quote that I keep thinking about over and over is, success is in the vision, survival is in the details. That's the one thing. And a lot of people will say, oh, that guy's reckless, he's irresponsible. But again, this is your livelihood. This is what supports your family. And you have taken all of the preparation and you have mastered your craft, as you spoke about earlier. But talk about that preparation. How do you get ready mentally, physically, emotionally for, attempting something like the Eiger and the Matterhorn?
Well, the Eiger was almost an unplanned thing because it was like a last minute call. So I had to be ready. How was I ready for this? Well, I was base jumping 5 times a week, like in 6 months I had put like 100 base jumps down, of cliffs. I would just get up a cliff and run off and do a flip, and that was just a normal daily routine almost. And I was skiing daily, consistent. So my skiing was top notch, my base jumping was top notch, and I'm offered to go to the Eiger, and I'm like, of course, I get this, terrified, but I get this. The Matterhorn, I had a little more time to think about it because I plotted it for about a year, and I was on the window, and then you show up there. But the thing is, the part that people don't really tell you, especially when you get into base jumping and all that, is how to mentally condition yourself. And I listen to a lot of dark and heavy music, and I like to, I'm an extrovert, but when I'm at home, man, I'm almost like, I'm in the dark sometimes listening to doom metal and just ruminating ideas and plans in my head. It's just the moment of preparation. It's kind of like you're in the shadow preparing yourself, and there's something really heavy metal about this, and I love it. That's a big part of how I prepare. I think, a lot of people talk about, Jungian theories of shadow work and things like that, and that's what it is, man. Learn to feel and digest these heavy, dark emotions when you're putting it all on the line. So all of a sudden, you learn to live in this emotional circle. You make your home in uncertainty and a potential feeling of despair, and then you find serenity in it. That's kind of how I prepare for this.
I love that. Well, you talk about this too. I mean, a lot of us that have played in the mountains, maybe beyond the traditional ski resort, you've said fear is your friend, and you need to find your meaning in discomfort, and I think that's exactly what you just summed up right there. I mean, is how do you find serenity when you're on a 50-degree slope, in the Alps, looking down, and you have to wait for 15 minutes?
Man,
it's like yoga, dude. It's so relaxing. No, I love it. It's very strange because I experience my mind racing and discomfort almost when I'm home in my daily life, and everything leading to a jump, a climb, or first or something like that is very chaotic emotionally, mentally, and even physically, because you trained for it. You're just exhausted. You're just really pushing yourself through. You're putting yourself in a regimen to be able to get there, right? You establish a roadmap to your goal, and you have to respect every milestone. Otherwise, you're not going to get there. It's just as simple as that. But then everything leading to it is almost unbearable, because I put a lot of pressure on myself emotionally. And I the way I train is, when I go train, I tell myself that no matter how hard my training is going to be, nothing is going to be as hard as actually the adventure itself or the goal itself. But a lot of the time, actually, when I end up going to the goal, because I think I overly prepare myself, when I get there, I'm like, oh, wow, that went actually flawlessly. Or part of a flawless execution is often recovering a bad situation flawlessly. And so, yeah, a perfect execution often requires a perfect recovery. And the only way to prepare for this is to train and to pay your dues and to jump with a plan, to train with a plan. And that's why the ethos is so important, because it's like saving money. If you save money just to save money, what the hell are you saving money for? But if you're saving money with a goal, be like, I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to put my kid through college, I'm going to do all this stuff. Why you're putting away each and every one of these dollars, right? When you go and you're sweating in the gym and you're hurting and you're rehabbing in that sauna and you're just suffocating, and I hate the heat, and I'm just like, oh God. But the whole time What do I think about? I think about the summit push, because I keep reminding myself that the summit push is going to be way harder than anything that I'm doing now. And this is that's why you have to if it's the famous quote from Nietzsche that was also used by Viktor Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning, which is I quote him very frequently. It's, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. So if you have a why, you will work through anything, no matter how much it sucks. You will get there. And Viktor Frankl knows what he's talking about, because he survived the most horrific, horrible human experience anybody can endure, because he was in Auschwitz. And he survived Auschwitz because he had a why past all his suffering. So on my more superficial level, as a skier and base jumper, and that looks not as powerful as what he's accomplished on his level of survival. But applying that philosophy to my endeavor helps me get to where I need to be. So the why helps you establish a roadmap.
You briefly mentioned recovery, training, and I know that after your accident, you you're quoted as saying something that I think relates to just about every human walking the planet, and that's identity death. I would love for you, again, most viewers and listeners are never going to ski base jump off anything, but I think identity death is very real to every single one of us. Can you, however you want to, take us down that path?
Yeah, and maybe real quick, Matthias, if you could just kind of share with our listeners what happened on when you got hurt on that jump.
Yeah. So actually the Eiger and the Matterhorn are a perfect background for this, because after getting dropped on these prestigious mountains with a helicopter and skiing off and jumping off, opening parachute and flying away, which was really glamorous, it felt like cheating, because I was using a piece of machinery to get up there. So all of a sudden I want to really take my ski base jumping to the next level by fully adding mountaineering and alpinism to it. The plan is to climb to the top of whatever mountain. I mean, the ultimate goal is to climb to the top of Mont Blanc and ski base jump from the summit. But to prepare for that, the goal is to climb the mountain that I'm going to jump off first, ski down, then jump off, right? So you hauling, 45 pounds on your back for 6, 7, 8 hours, 2 days sometimes, just to get there, just for that one descent, And so anyway, so to practice for Mont Blanc, I'm focusing on that peak outside my hometown called the Pointe d'Arreux. And the Pointe d'Arreux had been only skied a couple times. And the first descent of it was in 2006 by a legendary guide called Pierre Tardivel. He's a guide in the Alps who's done over 100 first descents in the Alps and the Himalayas. For a long time, he was the highest skier on Everest. So, I mean, he's legendary. And I know Pierre a little bit. We used to be sponsored by the same company. And I was like, hey, man, I really want to jump the Pointe d'Arreux. And he was like, oh, my God, that would be amazing. And he was like, here's how I think you should do it and this and that. So I put a plan together. I attempted once, got to the summit, turned around because the avalanche danger was too high. And then 2 months later, my ski and flying partner in the Alps, Stefan Lode, is the guy following me in that avalanche video from GoPro. And Stefan is like, hey, man, get to the Alps right now. Conditions are prime. Snow is melting. You got to get here. We got to get this thing done. I had just got done doing a stunt gig for Apple. I come home. My wife is pregnant to her neck. I'm like, it's my last project. I'm going to do this. Then I'll be home for 5 months. I'll be super dad. Pack my stuff, fly to the Alps. Weather gets gnarly, but there's that one weather window for half morning. And I'm like, okay, we got to get going. So we start climbing at 2 or 3 in the morning. And I get up there finally, summit. And I had a helicopter filming that day. Is before drones were becoming really, really, popular. And the helicopter took forever to show up. And by the time it showed up, conditions had changed. But I had such tunnel vision. I was so focused on getting this thing done that I was kind of ignoring the outside pattern. And Stefan was going to fly off the mountain with a Speedwing, Speedflyer, which is a small paraglider, so he can keep up with me. And he saw some birds, these birds that were flying down by the cliff. He goes, man, those birds, that's a bad sign. It means there's a thermal there. And I look at the flight pattern of the birds and I'm like, yeah, there's definitely some wind. It's not a black or white situation anymore. It's definitely a gray, but I think it's a light gray. We're not getting in the dark gray yet because of their flight pattern. They're not going that fast. I think I can still overpower that wind with my velocity. I just got to come in hot to do a big front flip and pitch. And it was like, all right, I'm not going, but take a decision, you go. And I was like, all right, cool, I'll see you later. And I skied down, and then the wind picked up as I was skiing, and I couldn't feel it because you create your relative wind when you ski. Jumped off. There was a big rock spire on my right and another one on my left. I was jumping kind of like in an amphitheater, and the wind has switched really strong from the south, so from my right to the left. So when I jumped, my parachute bit into the wind, and then I got line twist again, but I opened really low. And then a second and a half after I opened, I slammed into the cliff, hit the cliff 4 times. I fought as much as I could, was able to turn around. I started flying away, and then I passed out from the pain. Then I flew 4,000 feet unconscious, crashed, landed in a forest down in the valley, ripped my parachute, fell another 50 feet onto dirt. But then, I was riding the helicopter path. So, and then within 5 minutes, I had 13 firefighters come and help out. Helicopter picked me up in 20 minutes, had double fracture on my left femur. I spent 3 days in a coma, had a brain hemorrhage, and all this happened 3 weeks before the birth of my son, of course, which sucked. And, but then I was able to get home and be there for his birth, which is really what mattered. But then I'm home, and I'm facing several things. I'm facing fatherhood. I'm facing having to rebuild myself, and I'm facing having to develop my new identity as a dad while still trying to recreate myself as an individual, who I was, to live up by my own standards. And it was probably the second darkest moment in my life, because I'd spent my whole life since I was 9 years old creating myself. You can't have identity death unless you created yourself first, right? Otherwise, it's just straight up identity lost to begin with. I didn't have identity loss. I knew who I was, what I wanted to do with my life. But all of a sudden, I have a broken femur. I am cross-eyed. My depth perception is all off. I have crazy mood swings. So some of the part of the brain that I heard is the part that controls all your emotions. Bottom the line is, and I have a newborn at home, and a wife that just gave birth and needs help, and I can't do any of this. So all of a sudden, I'm not only disappointed by myself, I'm repulsed by myself. I'm just, a part of me felt like, I'm here for my son, my family, but part of me is like, maybe I shouldn't have survived that accident. Maybe that was my time. It felt so artificial to be in this world and try to just rebuild myself and just to not be at the level that I'm supposed to be as a human being, plain and simple, more than just an athlete. And it wasn't self-loathing. It was really just a self of just pointlessness. Be like, who the hell are you? What the hell are you doing? Who are you? And I was like, you know what? You get too much on the line. You got a family, you get a kid, you got to rebuild yourself. And this is a test. This is a test to your dedication. Jumping off stuff and skiing is not just a hobby. It's a vocation. It is a life or death thing. It might seem very trivial to a lot of people, but this is what I chose to dedicate my life to. And this is when I realized this is a test, man. This is a test. You test your dedication. Do you have what it takes to get back on your feet? And from there on, it was just a ruthless rebuilding process. Ruthless mainly with myself, just going to bed every day on how can I get to where I need to be, waking up every day, okay, what am I going to do now? Like as soon as I could walk, I would just, do hundreds of miles on my bike and train. And I just was relentless. But then, I was skydiving within 4 months and base jumping within 6 months. It took me 3 months to walk, 4 months to skydive, 6 months to base jump, 9 months to ski, a year to ski base jump. Because then when I started skiing, like I'm that pro skier, but all of a sudden I'm at like Mount Bachelor and I'm making turns and I'm crossing my skis on the blue run and eating it. And I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with me? I couldn't even control the fine, small motions in my leg. And it was just, that identity death it was brutal, but it was necessary because it taught me my place and it forced me to think of my whole approach and execution of what I want to do instead of relying on, I don't necessarily believe in talent, but I believe in maybe physical coordination and ability. And so I realized so much on my ability as a skier and jumper. It came really naturally. My first day base jumping was doing, 200-foot gainers off the bridge, no problem, and so everything came so naturally. But all of a sudden now I had to put a concrete, methodical path and approach to my craft. And it was a brutal awakening. But if this hadn't happened, there's absolutely no way I would have been to get to where I am today. Because then fast forward after 16 years, I'd go base jumping and do 30, 50 jumps in a week and not even do a single flip. I'd have the parachute in my hand, so jump, open my parachute right away. I just focus on jumping, opening, landing clean. And everybody would see me like, dude, that's super Frenchie. Like, what he's doing right now, he's so lame. Like, he's not doing anything cool. And be like, give me time, guys. It took me 4, 5, 6 years. And eventually, I went back to the Point d'Arreux and I ski base jumped it successfully. And then 2 months later, I was finally feeling good and was able to climb to the top of Mont Blanc for 2 days with 45 pounds of gear, ski base jump from the summit. And yeah, completed the Alps trilogy, ski base jumping. But this one, I did it right because I climbed the whole mountain. There was no helicopter used. And I also set a world record of the highest ski base jump. But this ultimate goal could have not happened unless I had crashed and experienced that identity death, because this is the moment of truth. This is when you go back to basics, to ground zero, and you face the brutal facts. Who are you? What are you trying to do? And where are you trying to be? What does it take to get there? This isn't some fancy party with sponsors and, signing autographs and having drinks with, hot chicks or whatever. No, it's you and the mountains alone. No BS here. This is the real deal. And it was a brutal path, but I don't regret it.
It's amazing when you have a failure, you don't realize it at the time, but it is your biggest blessing. And would you say from that experience, there's more appreciation for what you've been able to do and what you're, maybe what you're focused on into the future?
Yeah, I think in the short term, there was a lot of frustration because I wasn't able to perform like I wanted to perform, right? But what I noticed right away is, let's say I would jump a cliff that I jumped 100 times, right? And I'd jump off that cliff and all of a sudden I'd be like, oh, wow. I'd never experienced that jump this way. Like I'd never seen how I fly right by that ledge here, or, everything was so amplified. It's almost like it just filtered really and squeezed the essence of what it is about. And there would have been two ways. It would have been either that turns you off from that sport, or you just walk away from this forever, or you're just going to solidify it so intensely that this is the right thing. And for me, it consolidated so much my direction and approach. And I think everything is in the ethos. What is the meaning behind what you want to do? And for me, that meaning goes back to a long time, to childhood, but it was reinforced when I was 18. Unfortunately, it's the most horrible traumatic experience that happened to me, but it was also the most positive in the long run. It was my sister's suicide. My sister committed suicide when she was 27. I was 18. I recognized the body. I went to the mortuary. I was at the funeral, all this stuff, and all this, actually, I remember, because I had just blown my knee at the time. So physically I was incompetent. I wasn't able to, it was my first big injury, and my sister dies and all this stuff. And I remember being at the funeral and being like, this is it, man. You're not putting your life on hold anymore. You're going to pursue your direction. This is the moment. You know exactly what you're supposed to be doing with your life. Your sister killed herself probably because she didn't have these existential pillars, and you already have them. So there's no excuse, man. You got to go and go all the way. And that's why when I woke up in the hospital after the coma, I questioned for a couple of days whether I should keep going. But then I was like, no, man, this is what you committed to. This is the direction that you wanted to take. And actually, when I got out of the coma, the twin sister, my sister who passed, was staying next to me, and she was so peaceful. She had this look of calm on her face, was everybody else was freaking out. My other sister was, freaking out and telling all my friends they were coming to visit him, like, you have to convince him to stop jumping, this and that. But my other sister was just so calm. And she said something that will always stay with me, because she looked at me and she was like, yeah, you crashed and it's horrible and your son is about to be born. You got to get home. But you know what? You're honoring your sister by living a life of intention. And that never left me, because I was just, on this hospital bed for so long, trying to get back to my family and thinking that what I'm doing is so foolish and this and that. And then all of a sudden, one of the people that is the closest to me was telling me, no, you're doing it right, man. You are honoring our sister by going all the way. And that was also an extra motivation to push even harder. It's also like, this is it. Now, this is the direction that you set for yourself. And do you have the courage? It's not even, do you have the courage? You have it. You have it all. You have it all to rebuild yourself and achieve your goal. You only have one chance to make it, to reach your objectives. And it's right now. Everything else is completely uncertain. All we have is tangible. That is, it's now. Do it, no matter what it takes. We're going to die someday. So what are you going to do in the meantime?
Super Frenchie, the extreme level of focus that obviously you have when you're on the mountain. Talk to us about how that has translated into your life off the mountain with your wife, your son, business, just your life in general off the mountain, how that extreme level of focus translates.
Well, I think that extreme level of focus, extreme goals require extreme measures, right? When you have very ambitious goals, you got to build a very solid path to get there. And I think that level of focus comes with fine-tuning almost your approach on everything. Every decision that you make in your daily life has a direct or indirect impact on where you're trying to be. What are you eating? When are you training? How many are you taking naps? Are you not taking naps? How many hours are you sleeping at night? When are you going to wake up in the morning? What are you doing the first thing that you're waking up? And when you have an intense direction like that and an intense focus, you start to shape everything in your existence around it. And you really, again, it's building that pathway to your goal. And I think that trickles down into everything. How do you manage your finances? How are you handling your son's education? Which school are you going to send him to? What are you going to do for extra school? What are the extracurricular activities you're going to do? What opportunities are you going to offer him or experience that you're going to allow him to share with you or discover on his own? It's the time is now. People keep postponing it. And it's like, no, man, you got to do it all right now. And everything you decide, everything you do matters for sure.
Matthias, let's talk about your son. I've had, quite a few years to watch that relationship blossom. And, I look back at my old childhood and I go, man, I wish Matthias was my dad. Because I'll tell you what, Soren is living a pretty sweet life. If you're into the mountains, you're living in Bend, Oregon, of all places, and skiing, and I love watching him skateboard. Share the relationship, and also what are the main lessons that you're trying to teach him?
Well, this is a broad subject, but I think it's the main lesson that I'm trying to teach him is to have the courage to live by his own standard and live an intentional life. I see so many kids and so many parents out there that are just so flighty and all over the place, and the kids just like, oh, it's just, kids doing their thing. It's like, no, man, I'm not trying to put unnecessary pressure on him that is going to give him almost a sense of loss and despair, because putting too much pressure on your kid could result into horrible things, and even like depression, things like that. I'm letting him be a kid. I'm letting him play all this stuff. I tell him I love him. I hug him every day, but I'm a strict dad, The one thing that I'm telling him is like, if you're going to do something, you got to do it well. It doesn't matter if you're good at it or not. I sucked at skiing originally. Eventually I just worked at it so I could get to where I wanted to be. And also I think what I'm teaching him also is that, experience mattered. And I've already taken him surfing, indoor skydiving. We go skiing a ton together. He's dropping vert ramp on his skateboard, but he also has the diligence. At 4 years old, he would pull me out of bed at 7 a.m. before going to school or daycare and be like, I have to do my 20 ollies before I go to school. Because if I don't do my 20 ollies, then I won't be able to do my backside air over the coping when I'm 5 or whatever, So he has his goals and his roadmap, and he understands that that's it. You have to, when I look at him and the diligence that he has, I'm like, I'm able to kind of pass that on to him, but I didn't have it in the first place. I was, I partied, I had a good time, but skiing always prevailed. So I kind of shaped all my decisions, no matter how many detours I took to reaching my goals as a skier but I've been able to not force him, just mentor him into having the right mindset and approach to reach his objectives. And as a result, our connection, father-son, has become really, really strong. He's more than just a son, and I'm more than just a father. I'm a mentor, I think, and more than a son, he's almost become my little brother, And it's like, all right, man, let's go. Like last summer, he did this big 50-50 grind into a bowl, lost his balance, fell at the bottom of the bowl on his teeth, freaking broke both front teeth, and they're like adult teeth. And we're like, no. But he gets up, doesn't shed a tear, comes home. His skateboard coach drops in at home. And I was shooting a commercial in the garage, like cameras everywhere. And he walks in and the camera crew is like, his face is bloody and his teeth. He's like, hey, son, how was skateboarding? He's like, it was good, And then my wife's like, you broke your teeth. And I'm like, sorry, you broke your front teeth. Like, this is a big deal. Like, we're kind of freaking out as parents. And he looks at us, and this is when he gave me a taste of my own medicine, because he goes, hey, it's part of skateboarding. They took him to the dentist right away. They shot him in the teeth and, did his whole a repair job on his teeth, and his teeth look beautiful. And then that was it, So he didn't shed a tear. He wasn't faced because it had meaning to him, because he ate it. He broke his teeth, but, in a way, he was a badge of honor. He's a skateboarder, and that's what it is. And this is kind of what I can see in him. And when he said that, I was like, oh, dude, you're already starting to throw all this stuff right back at me. But you know what? Good for you.
Now, what comes around goes around, man.
Yeah.
Hey, but Matthias, as decent hosts that Jarod and I try to be, we try to be good listeners. There was a point early on in this podcast, I probably 12, 15, 16 minutes in, you dove in for a couple minutes, and it was the most amazing few minutes of being a listener as a podcast host that I have ever been on. You took me on a journey, and I know the listeners are going to feel the exact same way. I personally cannot wait to go back and listen.
Thank you. It's really, thank you for having me. Like, I love being able to share these experiences.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the DEKA Series on Spartan Up Podcast. Spartan Up is your partner in resilience for mind, body, and spirit. We're here 3 days every week. Tuesdays, you can find Joe DeSena, founder and CEO of Spartan, interviewing biohackers, business leaders, authors, and athletes. Thursdays and Saturdays, catch episodes from our DEKA, Endurance, Trail, Combat, and La Ruta series. Do you know someone who needs a little nudge? Maybe they could use some motivation, tactics to be stronger, healthier, happier, more successful. Tell them about our show. And if you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment. We want to know who's watching and who's listening. Thanks. See you next time. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by two sponsors, Headspace and The Ready State. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by Headspace. You deserve to feel happier, and Headspace is meditation made simple. Go to headspace.com/Spartan for a free 1-month trial with access to Headspace's full library of meditations for every situation. This episode of Spartan Up is brought to you by our friends Juliet and Kelly Starrett at The Ready State. Get a free trial and then save 10% for life by using the code SPARTAN10 when you register at thereadystate.com.